everyone, it's Hannah here from Hand Jam Crochet, and today I'm sharing with you how to make my new Paragon plaid blanket, which I've designed for an event that's coming up, or may have already been if you're watching this a little later, for August 2021. We're challenging everyone that can to make some blankets for premature babies, or hats, or clothes. There are loads of different things that you can get patterns for and come and join with us and make a pledge to make things for charity. So I'll pop the link in the description for that so you can find out more about it. But this pattern is also available for free on my blog or as a PDF in my stores. It's a really simple pattern that involves, as you see, some colour work, which I will talk you through. The blanket comes in sizes for blankets, as this one is for a premature baby, all the way up to a single bed size. So there's 5 different sizes that I've calculated for you, and the pattern also includes a chart and various other things to help you along the way. So the first thing to say is that the stitch pattern is really simple. The only stitch that we will be using throughout the whole thing is a US half double crochet. So if you can manage that, then you can manage the entire thing, and it is not as complicated as it looks, I promise. So to start with, we need to work out what we need. This blanket version here that I made and that is calculated for in the pattern is using double knit yarn, and I've used Deramore Studio DK for this. It has a really lovely drape to it. As you see, it's lovely and soft, and I used a 5mm crochet hook with the double knit yarn. But for this example, not only can you size it up by changing obviously the amount of stitches you have in your foundation row and how many rows you do up this way, you can also change the weight of your yarn, which I know a lot of people are quite scared about doing. So for this example, I'm going to be using a heavier weight yarn. I'm going to be using an Aran yarn. So this is some Paintbox Aran, which is 100% acrylic, which is from my stash. I love this yarn. It's really lovely and soft and easy to work with. And all I'm going to do is size up my hook. So as I said, I used a 5mm for the double knit yarn, so I would either go to a 6mm or a 6.5. I think I'm going to try with a 6.5 because I think it will give it some nice drape. But if you wanted to make a firmer blanket, then just size down or even stick with the same size hook as the double knit version. The other things that we will need, of course, is a pair of scissors and then a needle for your ends. So we'll keep those to one side, ready for later. So once you've decided on your colours, you're going to need to label them A, B and C. And I would say if you have got 2 colours that are more similar or not as dark, have the lighter colours as A and B, because there is a bit of colour carrying that we need to do that will be easier to hide if they are in lighter colours. So once you've decided that, we're ready to go. So starting the blanket, you have options. You can either work a row of foundation stitches, so a foundation half double crochet, or you can work a chain and then work back into that chain, whichever way suits you best. So I'm going to start with some foundation stitches, and they need to be in multiples of 6. So I'm going to begin by chaining 2 and then turning so that we can go into the back of that first chain, and you're going to yarn over and pull through 1, yarn over and pull through 1, because then that creates your chain for your next stitch, and then yarn over and pull through all 3. Yarn over, and now you're heading into that chain that you created there. Pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 1, yarn over and pull through all 3, and that's 2 stitches. You're going to go through that chain you made and pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through 1 to make your next chain, and yarn over and pull through all 3. I'll show you once more. Yarn over and go through the chain you made, pull through a loop, yarn over and pull through 1, yarn over and pull through all 3. And so keep doing that for as wide as you want your blanket to be, in multiples of 6. And I'll meet you back here when you're ready to make the next row. Now you've finished row 1, and that's going to set the amount of stitches for the width of your blanket. And now we're ready to turn and work row 2, and you're going to need yarn B ready at hand for this next row. So we're going to chain 1 and turn, and your first 3 stitches are going to be half double crochet in yarn A. So there's 1, 2, and we begin number 3, but we're not going to yarn over and complete in yarn A, we're going to yarn over and complete in yarn B, because then you're ready to start your next stitch in your new colour in yarn B. So we yarn over and you work a half double crochet in exactly the same way, but we're going to catch yarn A in the middle here. So this is the way that you avoid doing lots and lots of ends to sew in, but if you like ends to sew in, absolutely go for it. We've got 1, 2 and 3, but then similarly you're not going to complete with yarn B, you're going to complete with yarn A. And you carry on in this way, doing sets of 3 stitches, changing your colour on the last yarn over of the 3rd stitch. Nearly. So now we've got to the last 3, and so the only difference now is that we don't need, on the next row we're going to start with yarn B, so we don't need to carry yarn A for these last 3 stitches. The more of the blanket you make, the more intuitive this will become, but to start with it just feels like you're getting in a great big tangle, well it does for me anyway. So then that's row 2 complete, and now we're going to turn, and copying the colours that you have here, you're going to work exactly the same. You're going to chain 1, you're going to work in these 3, but then you're going to change colour on this 3rd one. And now our yarn, you'll notice I pushed it to this side to make sure that it was ready for us, but you can have it from the other side, it doesn't really matter. You're going to pull through there, and then you're not going to notice that little bit of a stitch. So then we're going to work 3, making sure you catch yarn B so that it's now ready to switch over to. And then carry along your row in these 2 colours. Now when we get to the last 3, we're not going to need yarn B at the beginning of the next row because we'll switch to yarn C. So we're going to leave that there, and get to the end of the row, and we're going to change to yarn C on the last yarn over and complete of the stitch. Like that, and then chain 1, and you're ready to work the next row. So now you've got 3 ends of yarn now, so you need to be careful that you don't get in a tangle. It's fine to do. If I wasn't sat at a table, I would have them to the side of me on my lap or at the side of me, and have them all switched over each row, because then you can kind of see where all your ends are, can't you? But for now we need to carry yarn A, because we're going to need that in a second. And now using yarn C, we're going to do 3. But as we've done before, you're going to finish the third one with the other colour for this row, which is yarn A. So yarn A gets used in all the rows, and then you alternate yarn B and yarn C to get this checkered effect. And so now, as you go through, you'll see we don't need this yarn C for the beginning of the next row. We're going to need yarn A, so don't worry about carrying it through. And that's the next row complete. And now we're going to turn. You're going to chain 1. And on the third stitch here, we're going to change to yarn C, and then you're going to carry on, making sure you scoop yarn A there. Now looking here, looking ahead, for the next row we are going to need yarn A to begin the row with, so we make sure we do carry it. And we switch to yarn A. And we turn. And that's your next row complete. And so if you can do that, we basically now just keep repeating these 4 rows until your blanket is the height that you would like it to be. So now we chain 1 and we work the first 3. And now we need to come back to yarn B, which, as I said, will sit across your blanket like this. And I would say if you're making this for a tiny baby, I wouldn't carry these. I wouldn't carry these floats just because of fingers and so on, toes. So I would cut those and I would weave them in. But if you are making a bigger blanket for bigger people, then I wouldn't worry too much. So once you get into the swing of it, it's actually really quite addictive with the colour changes and so on. I would say you just need to, it's not kind of a box set kind of sit and do unless you really, really are hot on your colour changes. And also it's not something to do around curious pets or curious small people. Because obviously you have 3 balls of yarn coming off of your work, and I don't know about you, but gosh, it's hard enough with small people and curious animals with 1 ball of yarn, let alone 3. And so then the next time you're ready to add yarn C, you just can carry it up the side, and don't worry about this because you're going to cover that up with the border, so that's no problem at all to carry that there. And so now we carry on working these repeats until you've got your blanket the size that you would like it to be. So if you carry on doing that, and I'll meet you back here when you're ready to start working the border with me. So once you've worked the amount of rows that you would like for your blanket, or as the pattern states, to get to the size you need, we're ready to work the border. And so we've already worked part of the border. It's this foundation row that we made here is going to be the bottom of the blanket. And all we're going to do is add half double crochets all the way around the other 3 sides. So it's really simple and really effective. Now, to note, this is now offset. I've designed this blanket because I really like this look of it not quite sitting quite symmetrically. It kind of plays with you a bit, and the bigger the blanket is, the less noticeable that is. But I was just in this little swatch, it's really obvious, and I just quite like it like that. But if you would prefer it not to be like that, and you would like another set of these 3 stitches to balance out this side, then you'll just need to add another 3 stitches onto the end of your foundation chain. It's not too tricky to change that. So if you'd like to, then do that, because I hadn't realized quite how offset it looks until I've made this smaller swatch. But as I say, in the larger blanket, it's really not very noticeable. So we're going to rotate our work, and we're going to join to this very first foundation stitch here with yarn A, and you're going to chain 1, and that's going to make a corner, and then you're going to half double crochet into the same very first stitch there, and that will be a corner made. And now we're simply going to work a half double crochet into the side of every row up the side of the blanket. Now where you choose to put them is entirely up to you. Some people like to put them in the center of the stitches there along the sides. Some people like to encase the first stitch, but then remember that will make your blanket a bit thinner. But wherever's comfortable for you, but the most important thing is to be consistent. That's how to get neat edges, that's how to get neat tension and so on, and color changes, all those kinds of things. The technique of crochet is just to be consistent, I think. So all the way up the side, into all the sides of the stitches. Till we get to the corner, and that's a half double crochet there, and then we're going to chain 1 to give ourselves space to get around the corner, and then we're going to half double crochet in the same space again, and then you're going to work along every stitch of this row now on this side of your blanket. Right up until you get to your next corner. And then once we're at the last stitch of that row, we're going to work a half double crochet, a chain 1 and a half double crochet all into the same there. And then work our way down the side of the blanket again. And you can weave in your ends as you go if you like here. And this is where we can hide all the bits at the side that we did. And then once we get to the end here, we're going to chain 1, and then you're just going to simply join it to this very first stitch here, and that will complete your border. So you've just got a few ends here now to finish and sew in, and that is it. That is all there is to making this blanket. I really hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial and that it's been helpful. I'm really excited to see the colour combinations you come up with and the different blankets that you make. If you are in the time frame of the Preemie challenge, then please do go and check it out and make a pledge, make some blankets, make some hats, donate some of your work. That would be amazing to help us. If you'd like to see more of my work, then please do subscribe and tap the bell button and you'll get notified when I release new patterns and tutorials. Thank you so much for joining me. I will pop the link for the pattern, the blog, the tools, everything that I've used here today and the yarn in the description, so you can go find them if you'd like to. Thanks so much for joining me. See you again soon.